Tonight, marking the first National Day for Truth and Reconciliation.
We've all had family members who did not return from residential schools.
How people across the GTA marked the day of reflection in honor of all the children who died in residential schools. Plus,
that was an abrogation of democracy. It was wrong.
Canada's top court will rule tomorrow on whether Premier Doug Ford's decision to slash the size of Toronto's City Council was constitutional. We speak to city councillors and a political science expert to get their thoughts on the eve of the big decision. And
there goes Simeon. Guerrero sends it to center, pretty well hit.
No rest for the Jays. After a big win yesterday, the team is back at it tonight in another crucial game against the Yankees to keep their playoff dreams alive. The CN Tower lit up orange tonight to mark the first National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, a day to honor the children who died in residential schools, as well as the survivors, their families, and communities that are still impacted by the legacy of those schools. Good evening, I'm Kelda Yoon. It's estimated that between 70,000 to 100,000 Indigenous people live here in the city of Toronto, the fourth largest Indigenous population in the country. Ardell Manukduk has more on how the day was marked across the city.
Hundreds gathered at the Toronto Zoo to mark the National Day of Truth and Reconciliation and have conversations about the Indigenous experience that's been held quiet for so long.
We've all had family members who did not return from residential schools. We've all had family members who've gone missing with little to no concern.
Little concern or discussion or acknowledgement, even in history classes.
The amount we learned about any of this was it was a few minutes devoted to years of study. I don't know why that was, and I think it's been being remedied now.
At Tom Longboat Junior Public School in Scarborough, kids are learning early. Children planted 7,500 flags that read "Every Child Matters," equivalent to the number of children estimated to have died in the residential school system.
They keep asking, why did the children have to go so far away? Why were they taken forcibly? So as an educator, I have to explain to them everything. We can't hide from the past.
To the 7,500 families who lost their daughters and sons, often never knowing what happened to them.
The project began when 215 kids were found in unmarked graves in Kamloops Indian Residential School. The number rocked the school principal.
Because that would be the equivalent of my entire student population not making it home, and their families not ever being able to see their children ever again.
The kids took a solemn walk around the school's field to consider a time before they were even alive, but not that far off.
And you know, we often, in having a day of reflection like this, think of these things as things that happened way off in the distant past, when in fact the last residential school closed in 1997, not 1897.
The school says the children are eager to learn and be part of the solution.
They went through a lot, and I want to help out and make sure that history doesn't repeat again.
Dale Manukduk, CBC News, Toronto.
Jays Yankees Game 3 tonight, a pivotal game in the Jays' quest for a playoff spot. But much of the focus tonight was not about baseball at all. On this National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, the Jays using their platform to help amplify Indigenous voices. A historical moment as Mary Nawagabo from Whitefish River First Nation sings the Canadian anthem in English, French, and Anishinaabe-Moan. The ceremonial first pitch was thrown by Marjorie Kakaji Lee. She survived 9 years at an Indian residential school, and a permanent land acknowledgement and artwork by Philip Coate can now be seen inside and outside the Rogers Centre. Meantime, it was, of course, a huge game for the Jays. They went into tonight just 1 game back of Boston for the second wildcard berth and 2 games back of New York for the top spot.
And he sends the first pitch high and deep to center field and way out of here.
Jays ace Robbie Ray getting the start tonight. The Yankees would score first, but it didn't take the Jays long to tie it up. Corey Dickerson drilling one down the right field line to bring Bo Bichette in to score. Skip to the top of the sixth. The Jays are up 1 when the Yankees offense really find their swing. They drill in 3 homers to take a 5-2 lead. And that's where it would end. The Jays drop Game 3 and the Yankees take the series. The Jays kick off their final series of the regular season against the Baltimore Orioles tomorrow at home. Well, the Supreme Court of Canada is expected to rule tomorrow on whether Ontario Premier Doug Ford's decision to slash the size of Toronto City Council during the last municipal election in 2018 was constitutional. Our Dahlia Ashry is live at City Hall tonight. And Dahlia, you spoke to some city councillors and a political science expert on this eve of the ruling to get their thoughts.
Kelda, the political science expert I spoke with, says that the provincial legislature, it isn't their first time passing a law to reduce the size of council. Now, what was different in 2018 is that it's the first time that it happens for a large city like Toronto and during an election campaign. But most importantly, the first time a decision gets taken forth to the Supreme Court of Canada. Now, at the time, the move was widely criticized by many, and even until now, 3 years later, some of the city councillors I spoke with are still shaking their heads at the decision. The city's municipal election campaign was well underway in 2018, where Premier Doug Ford expressed his views about Toronto City Council.
People are tired of watching City Hall. It's like a comedy show down at City Hall. They go around and around and around. Nothing gets done.
His fix, slashing the number of council seats from 47 to 25, a move that shocked many councillors and candidates in the running, including Paula Fletcher, who ultimately won the newly constituted riding of Ward 14, representing Toronto Danforth.
That was an abrogation of democracy. It was wrong.
Toronto successfully challenged the legislation in Superior Court, with the judge deeming it unconstitutional. At the time, Ford threatened to use the Constitution's notwithstanding clause to push through the change. In the end, he didn't need to. The province won a stay of the decision pending appeal. Fletcher says the downsizing has impacted the personal relationship she has with her constituents.
And I don't think it's fair for all of those 108,000 residents. They're never going to get the time and attention from me, the personal attention that they actually want.
On the eve of the Supreme Court's decision, other councillors are also speaking out.
The question is whether the courts rule that it was unconstitutional. And I am certainly hoping that given the severity of the action in the midst of an election, that they will.
Andrew Sancton is a political science professor. He was hired by the Ontario government in 2018 as a voice of support in their decision to reduce council.
It would make it easier for these people, the councillors who were not organized by party, to make decisions.
But he says tomorrow's ruling will not hinge on whether or not it was a good decision.
I suspect that the most important part of the Supreme Court's decision tomorrow will relate to whether the action of the government in reducing the size of the council somehow affected the freedom of speech of the council candidates, that they were cut off during the election campaign.
Now, the city argued that the change caused confusion for voters and candidates, but the provincial government had argued that it didn't. All the information was there and needed to head to the polls. Now, we reached out to the province and they were unable to comment on the matter since the issue is still before the courts. And tomorrow's decision will be delivered almost 1 year close to the municipal vote, which is next year. Kelda?
Thanks so much, Dahlia. That's our Dahlia Ashry reporting live for us tonight. Thanks. Colette Kennedy joins us now with a first look at the forecast. And Colette, temperature is a little bit cooler tonight, feeling that fall chill.
Thanks, Kelda. Yeah, things just a little bit different today compared to yesterday, but also compared to how they're going to be tomorrow. So we had a little more cloud cover, temperatures down just a little bit. We're going to break out of that cloud cover. However, when we do, through these overnight hours, we keep seeing the frost advisories coming up, not into the GTA, but you can see just to the northwest where they are looking at some advisories as those temperatures are falling down. And don't get me wrong, they're going to be somewhat cool too into the city. But daytime highs today, we did did have some mid-teens, low 20s into southwestern Ontario, and by the way, in northwestern Ontario, some mid-20s from some of that prairie heat. Now, this is what's going on through the overnight. A few areas may see a little bit of patchy fog, so be aware of some reduced visibility potential there. But otherwise, it is going to be quite the glorious day tomorrow. A little more cloud cover and some changes coming into eastern Ontario, but from the GTA back towards southwestern Ontario, looking good. Your low tonight, though, in Toronto, 7, but we'll be seeing numbers cooler than that west and north of us. And tomorrow, how about this? Up to 20 degrees with mostly sunny skies.
Yay, thanks so much, Colette. There's now a vaccine mandate for many non-essential businesses, but advocates and families of seniors say there needs to be one to protect vulnerable people living in long-term care and retirement homes, and they're pushing the province to do more. Lorenda Redicott reports.
It just infuriates me that it's happening. If you're not vaccinated, stay out.
Jill Beauville says her grandmother, fully vaccinated, living in a retirement home in Durham region, recently tested positive for COVID. Right now, vaccinations are not required for staff or visitors. They can choose regular COVID testing.
She is frail. She can barely speak. She has barely any voice at the moment, no energy. She has no appetite, and she really just does not want to be here any longer. And it's sad.
She doesn't want to name the home, worried it could affect her grandma's care.
Ludicrous to me.
This advocate can't understand why people need vaccine proof to go into bars and restaurants, but not retirement and long-term care homes.
Frankly, that should have been the first sector that had a vaccine mandate. And it is mind-blowing to all of us in this field of, aging adults and adults in congregate care that there isn't a mandate.
The home involved says it has one case and is testing all residents. It says all staff there are already vaccinated, and it's mandating that by October 31st, going beyond the provincial guidelines. A manager couldn't say whether that will also extend to visitors and caregivers. Yesterday, CBC News asked the chief medical officer about long-term care homes and why staff vaccinations aren't required.
It's under active review.
There's been a recent rise in cases at long-term care homes. 17 are in outbreak.
We're looking at that evidence, how it got brought in, whether it was from a non-vaccinated worker or a visitor or some type of break in the infection prevention control.
The province says it's providing extra protection through third doses of the vaccine and has administered more than 40,000 shots. That represents almost 59% of residents. Jill Beauville wants a vaccine mandate in place already, not just in long-term care homes, but also retirement homes like where her grandma lives. Lorenda Redicott, CBC News, Toronto.
Welcome back. The Premier marking National Day for Truth and Reconciliation at an outdoor ceremony at Toronto's Massey College.
Recent discoveries of remains found at a former residential school sites in Western Canada underscored the need for all Ontarians to learn about the lasting harms of the residential school system.
Today is about the truth and loss, reflections and pain, strength and resilience, the truth of the past, the loss of our children, our hope, but the strength of a people who survive. As we look back, we must decide what steps we will take to safeguard our future.
The event was held in partnership with Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. Well, it's a first in Ontario, an Indigenous hub that will provide the community with important services in healthcare, employment, and childcare. And it's being built right here in the city. Construction of the hub is now underway in Toronto's West Donlands. I spoke to those involved in the project about what it will mean for the urban Indigenous community to finally have a space like this to call their own.
So this is a long time in the making. How long has it been in the making for?
Well, from a personal perspective, it's been over 20 years me working on this project. The biggest obstacle that we had was the land. After a lot of convincing and meetings and whatnot with the government, we established the need, and they agreed with that.
In 2014, the provincial government returned this 2.4-acre parcel of land to Anishinaabe Health Toronto. The hub, when complete, will span an entire block at Front and Cherry Streets and include the Anishinaabe Community Health Centre, the Misway Beak Training, Education and Employment Centre, the restored Canary Heritage Building, as well as a condo building and a rental building.
We're well underway with starting the shoring and the excavation of these buildings. We hope to finish the health center sometime in early 2023, and then the balance of the buildings in 2025.
Why do you think something like this is so integral, so important to the community here?
I think it'll give them a sense of pride, a sense of belonging, being part of the community in Toronto. I've often said that, you know, you can walk throughout Toronto pretty much and you'll see segments of the city that you know, that are vibrant of many, many different cultures. And what has been absent has been the Indigenous people. And ironically, you know, being first here on this land, like we speak of in our healthcare model of identity and how important that is in terms of your healing journey. So this project represents that to some degree.
Anishinaabe Health currently has 3 locations in the city. Hester says incorporating all 3 into one large 4-story space will help them provide more programs and better services that integrate Indigenous health practices and Western medicine. The Misway Beak Training Centre, meanwhile, will be 5 stories, doubling the size of its current space on Gerrard.
One of the exciting features of the center is that our main floor will be outfitted with the state-of-the-art carpentry, machinery and equipment. So our young people can learn the construction trade skills right within our own facility.
The building will also include an Indigenous childcare and family center funded by the city.
It's important for the community to have infrastructure. I think infrastructure, whether it's housing, whether it's training facilities, schools, it's the foundation of economic development and the ability for our community and individual community members to have an economic foothold in the GTA.
There's also going to be apartment complex along the southern portion here and along here as well. And that's an interesting concept because it brings with that a revenue share for us. And so that goes to making sure that we can provide for some generations ahead.
He's hoping the hub will encourage more investments in the Indigenous community.
It's going to be, from our perspective, I think a fairly strong statement from our people, from our community, that we can do it. All we need to be given is the opportunity, and we can work together.
A few cloudy periods tonight, but it will be mainly clear overnight, making way for a beautiful sunny day. Tonight, though, temperatures dipping a bit, currently 12 degrees in downtown Toronto. Let's go back to Colette now with a look at your extended forecast. And Colette, a bit cool tonight, but things again changing as we welcome the first day of October tomorrow.
Thanks, Kelda. Yeah, we're into these situations where we get these cooler nights, but then the daytimes are pretty good. I mean, yesterday was, tomorrow's going to be. Today was just a little bit of an exception because even though we had high pressure with the winds over the lakes, we got some lake effect cloud cover and there was quite a bit of it. But we're also seeing something else that keeps creeping up and creeping in direction, and those are our frost advisories. So like I showed you earlier in the show, we have some of those yet again, kind of depends on the growing season and timing in terms of where they are. They're not in the GTA yet. Temperatures on the rise, though, with the daytime highs. So even though those cool nights, well, I'll tell you the other thing that's going to happen is actually the overnights. Those temperatures are going to start coming up after tonight as well. And Sunday, yeah, this high pressure that came to visit and it stayed and it's actually one of those relatives you want to stay for a good long time, moves away, and we do get into some showers coming back in actually Saturday night into Sunday. So the forecast as we look ahead, though, into Friday, just a really nice day. A few fair weather clouds early morning, some fog possible, patchy, but in a few areas reduced visibility. But then as that ridge takes over, lots of sunshine, and then you see what's changing here. Now, this is eastern Ontario for Saturday morning, still not having an impact for the Golden Horseshoe or stretching back into southwestern Ontario. That won't be the case late in the day and into Sunday. That's when that rain will be coming in. The other big change is that northwesterly flow goes around to a southerly to southwesterly flow tomorrow. That's helping to pick our temperatures up. They're cool tonight, though. There you are, southwestern Ontario, London down to 4. Tomorrow, though, wow, looking really good. Don't you want to see that on a Friday, right? To have such nice conditions. Here they are, big range in terms of those temperatures around the GTA. And then for tomorrow, we are looking at that 20 degrees, maybe because of the wind off the Lake Oshawa. If you're near the lakeshore, just slightly cooler, get away from it and you'll see that 20 degrees. Saturday, 23 with that increase in cloudiness. And there we go, Kelda, that next system would say bye-bye to our ridge of high pressure. And we see the wet weather coming back in.
Thanks, Colette. Across Toronto, there were many displays of people commemorating National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. Community members near the harbourfront set up an Every Child Matters memorial at Little Norway Park. Residential school survivor Samuel Wesley was there. He describes what his experience was like as a child.
Horrible. They were stealing our tradition. They were stealing our culture.
Wesley says since the discovery of hundreds of unmarked graves across the country, people have been trying to find ways to help. He wants to remind everyone that although today is the first nationally recognized Truth and Reconciliation Day, the conversations and support for Indigenous causes must continue year-round.
I think there's something going on that people need to understand what this reconciliation means. You know, it means getting together, you know, forgiving one another for our differences.
Wesley says he has hope that things will change for the better, but agrees people need to understand the truth before reconciliation can happen. And that is our show for you tonight. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you back here tomorrow night at 11. Have a great night.